Hi, this is Matt with State of Flux, here with a review for Nope. The start of this review is going to be non-spoiler. There should not be much in the way of spoilers to talk about, but as it's a very spoiler-heavy movie, it's not going to be a very long review, so I'll give you a definitive spot wherein the spoilers will start, and that is where you can either hop off or jump to if you are so inclined. What did I think of Jordan Peele's latest effort? Well, I'm a big fan of Jordan Peele. I think all of his films are really, really strong. And I would argue that this is probably, in my opinion, the weakest of them. And I do include films like Keanu and Candyman in that assertion. However, just because it is not as good as his other efforts does not make it a bad movie. I'm going to liken it to Edgar Wright's film Last Night in Soho. I think Last Night in Soho is the worst film that Edgar Wright himself has directed. However, I had that movie in my top 10 last year. Just because something isn't as good as previous efforts does not make it bad. So I'm just going to put that on Front Street. Why did this one not connect with me as much? Well, I think that comes twofold. As far as narratives go for a Jordan Peele film, I think this one is the most narratively focused. It is the most streamlined movie of the bunch. That said, most of his movies are laced with ideas and concepts and themes, all of which are like tied heavily into allegory and stuff. And either the film's meaning and messages were so ambiguous that they kind of flew right over my head, or they were so on the nose that I was like, well, yeah. And I think it's more that one than the first one. However, it could be the first one. So this one just didn't give me the food for thought that some of his other films were. I think you could argue that his previous film, directorial film, Us, was very ambiguous in what it was trying to say, because it wasn't trying to say any one thing. It was kind of like a gun blast of so many different things that he was trying to say about the United States, about America, about we as people, as civilizations beyond America, and all this kind of stuff. There was many things that he was trying to say and accomplish with that movie. However, everything that he was trying to say with Us just generated my brain into constant state of thought. Whereas this one, I constantly was trying to justify meaning behind things to a point where I was like, I don't know if that was necessarily the intent anymore. I think that this movie is more just sort of a front-facing narrative with two things that the movie's really kind of trying to say that aren't necessarily the most tied in together. I mean, it's there, but it's not. We'll touch on that again soon in the spoilers. What works really well for me, though, is there are two really solid scare pieces in this film. The first of which comes pretty early on with an animal, and I guess that's all I'll say. It will have you reshaping your relationship with animals, pretty domesticated animals, for want of a better word, pretty sharply. And then there's a great moment with inside a barn that is exceptionally terrifying. It was one of the scariest moments I had in a movie theater in literally years. I can't remember the last time I was that unsettled. Performance-wise, Keke Palmer really is fantastic. A lot of people are pointing to her as being as good as she is in the film, and I would agree. She is probably the strongest performance within the film. However, I also really like Daniel Kaluuya's laid back performance. He's a very gifted actor. He doesn't quite get the energy or performance that he needed to give for a film like Get Out, or I've seen him capable of giving in Judas and the Black Messiah or Black Mirror. He's far more reserved and laid back, but he brings an element to the character that just is really strong. It's a good performance. Stephen Yeun is quite good, though shamefully underused. I wanted more from him. He was the most compelling character to me, and I was kind of disappointed at how little he is in the movie. But yeah, so this is a good film. It's more... it's if I were to liken it to any one movie, I guess it would be very similar to Close Encounters of the Third Kind until it kind of pivots into Jaws territory. But it's like a good film. Check it out. But I can understand some of where people might be disappointed, but I can also understand the people that think it's the best thing Jordan Peele has ever done. Because, as I say, it's the most streamlined, the most accessible work of his. But yeah, so this is here endeth the traditional review. I give it 3 out of 4 stars. Good film. From this point forward, I'm going to be doing spoilers, so if you want no more spoilers, hop the fuck off. That was a little harsh. There didn't need to be a fuck there, but this is an R-rated review, so fuck it. Nope. Nope is a film about aliens, as the preview suggested. It's a alien that lives in the clouds, who's disguised by a cloud as a cloud, and one of the things that kind of had the film fall apart for me is I didn't buy into the organic nature of the alien. Yeah, like, I know it's an alien, and so aliens can be weird and stuff like that, and there's even like home world comparative to it, in that the thing is essentially a giant like jellyfish slash sea stingray. It's sort of like a combination of those two animals, or like sea life, just up in the clouds. But for me, like, I can watch a film like Alien and buy into that being an alien. It has a biology that is understandable and makes sense to me. Once things enter into more Thing territory, where it's just the creature can do whatever is convenient for the plot at that moment, the movie kind of loses me a little bit. And to be clear, Alien, I didn't really necessarily like the life cycle of that thing until the second movie, which made it grounded it a lot more in realistic terms. So aliens just in general are hard to buy into, but there are aliens that I can just firmly place belief that would exist. Your ETs, of which this film has a scene that's very evocative of an ET moment. ET, Alien, as mentioned before, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. There's countless others, but this alien seems a little more thing-ish. It's whatever plot convenience is at any given moment is what it's capable of doing. So much so that it turns into a giant angel at the end of the film. We'll touch on the end of the film in a moment. I said that the film either had such an ambiguous message that it went over my head, or it had a very on-the-nose one where I was like, well, yeah. That would be this, because I think it's more the latter, and I believe that this film is trying to say that it's important to have respect for nature and animals, have a reverence for them, and failure to do so can have disastrous effects. It also is a film that dissects the exploitativeness of our media-driven world, specifically with film. This film is a soft sequel to the first film ever made, the black horse rider riding horse, and Daniel Kaluuya character, pardon me, and Kiki Palmer characters are descendants of that first actor. And so this ties into that story rather uniquely, and you see how throughout the film there's constant evolution of spectacle until it gets bigger and bigger, delivering on a grander scale with each subsequent scene. This is done successfully. Jordan Peele is a good filmmaker. However, diving into how media will exploit nature or exploit animals for its own personal or economic gain is present. They don't really, like, it's there. I don't feel like the two stories tied, or the two themes tied together as neatly as they wanted to, especially since towards the end of it, I mean, yes, they are trying to exploit the alien, and so thusly never learning their lesson by trying to capture the perfect shot, which in and of itself is a statement on film. We're trying to continually go grander and grander with our capturing the perfect moment on film. Oftentimes at the expense of the person who might be in front of or behind the camera. This is an important story to tell. However, I don't necessarily feel like this one told it well enough for me, or I didn't connect with it. I did want to discuss how the exploitation of animals in the film is used very well, particularly with the horse and the chimpanzee. When the chimp loses it and attacks the cast of the show that it's in, it is some of the most haunting imagery I've ever seen. You don't really see much of the violence, you just see the aftermath of it. The chimp with its bloody paws and bloody face, and the ghost of the woman that you see. She's not a physical ghost, but her face is ripped off, and you don't see it until after it's all scarred over and it's 30 years have separated that moment. But that is some of the most haunting and cruel use of animal I have seen in a film, and damn does that deliver it in its purpose. But at the same time, as a person who does have a respect or reverence for animals and nature, it is kind of a, I'm sitting there like, well, yeah. And it's not like it's a deep food for thought, because the film doesn't really dive into how the exploitation of that animal is bad. It's just sort of puts it out there that the exploitation of the animal is bad. I think a film like Get Out was much more successful in like a, well, yeah, kind of narrative of the black experience. You could make the same argument that, yeah, like racism is bad, and this film is kind of showing essentially liberal-minded people that they may not be so liberally minded, because they might be relating to the white family that is exploiting this black family and stuff like that. And it has, like, well, yeah, moments to it as well. However, the food for thought there is so much more rich, and you can really, like, that movie won an Oscar for its screenplay for a reason. It is a movie that leaves you deep in thought, even if you are a very like woke or progressive person or whatever it is, and even if you're not, it's still going to leave you thinking and getting those gears turning. That movie leaves an imprint, far more so than this film does. Like, you have to sort of sit there and dissect how the animals are being exploited, if that message is really cemented, which, like, it's definitely there and it's cemented in me, but it was just such a loose loosely done that I don't know if it worked necessarily for me this time around. I think his allegorical comparatives in Us and Candyman and certainly Get Out were far more vastly rich in thought and execution than this one had. That said, the escalation of chasing the perfect shot and how media is used, and the dig at TMZ, and the constant use of visual reminders, like the horse loses its mind because of the reflective spherical orb that they use for lighting on film set, and that's when you see this, even like this tamed horse, quote unquote tamed horse, still is an animal that's wild, and it's not being treated with respect, and nobody's listening to its own personal cues of comfort, and so it lashes out. When the TMZ guy shows up, the visual is very evocative of that spherical orb, in that the helmet that he's wearing is just a straight mirror. And I thought that was kind of neat. Jordan Peele's a good filmmaker. He knows how to visually shoot a movie that is quite stunning. And even though this film didn't have the budget it probably needed to make that alien a little more believable and less tarpy, I felt it looked kind of just like a giant parachute, honestly. It didn't have like an organic quality to it. And a larger budget probably could have resolved that a little better. Like, even though he doesn't have the budget to sell that, he does give you distinctly great visual shots that have lingered with me. And I can't help but acknowledge that when I walked out of that theater, the very first thing I did was look to the sky and look at the clouds around me. Every day since I've seen the movie, it's been about 4 days now, because I really wanted to deliver something worth thinking about with this review. Usually I give you my immediate thoughts. I wanted to take some time and really hone in on what I thought and felt. Every single day that I've gone outside, there has not been a moment that I just looked into the sky and awed. The movie does deliver on giving you an appreciation for nature and whatnot. Alright, I mentioned earlier, this is going to be kind of my last little thing, I mentioned the chimpanzee scene was one of the most haunting, horrifying things I've ever seen. The scariest scene that I have seen in any movie in like years. I can't remember the last time I was as traumatized as this was when Daniel Kaluuya is walking through the barn and he thinks he sees an alien. He sees the shadow and the thing just kind of looks out and moves and starts slowly walking, and then there's not just one, there's three of them. Turns out it's Stephen Ewan's kids dressed up as little aliens or whatever. That scene was shit your pants scary. And it, like, I was like literally feeling the urge to like bite my nails. It was that kind of like white knuckle intense. It's like a nothing scene. It's literally like 60 seconds, maybe 2 minutes long at most. But it's very effective. And the movie, funnily enough, it reminded me most of, and I think he was capturing the feel of, is E.T. E.T., a lot of people forget that the first half hour of E.T. is actually pretty scary. That movie is a movie that hits all genres. We tend to think of it as like Buddy, Boy, and his alien, and the alien is so sweet and cute, and that movie is just tragically sad when people say, or when the family says goodbye to E.T. And every time you rewatch it, you just kind of focus on that, knowing that E.T. is a good alien. But good aliens weren't really traditional in major movies at that point when that movie came out. And you have to think back to the very first time you saw E.T. For a lot of us, we were children, but watch this movie with a child and watch it through their eyes. The first half hour of E.T. is terrifying. None more so then when Elliot first goes outside to meet E.T., when E.T. is in the shed and you have the Spielberg lighting and E.T. slowly emerging and he does the walk to the camera and you're just seeing the shadow of this thing. It is genuinely scary scene. And like the first time I showed it to my daughter, she was like, and like that was kind of the same feel I got with this. It's shit your pants scary, turns out to be kid friendly. It's so much so that it's fucking kids. So I thought that was pretty genius. The very last thing I want to talk about is the character of Jupe. Jupe is the tie between the two themes. The theme of respect for nature, reverence for animals, and the theme of like spectacle and media's abuse and exploitation of animals. His character's tied into that through, he was a young boy on the set of a TV show where the chimpanzee who was playing a character named Gordy lashed out at his cast after a random episode in season 2, a mishap happened on the set, the chimp lost it and just attacked, not recognizing what it did, and like the chimpanzee walking up to the camera and like trying to do the fist bump thing is like haunting imagery, but you're watching this through the minds, or through a child's eyes. This character is only like 9 or 10 years old, and then the story jump cuts to the modern day, 25 years separated from that moment, and that character is now all grown up and looks to the sky and sees the cloud and he decides to exploit the cloud. He's lived through what the dangers of nature and animal can produce, and sees himself as invincible from that, and he's really the tether between the two stories. But his modern day storyline didn't really work quite as well for me. He is exceptionally played. I fully believe that character is real. I just didn't think that enough effort was put into the modern day Jupe stuff to really make those two storylines sing as they should have. But this film is a very strong movie, 3 stars. I liked a lot about it. I liked the themes. I just didn't think they were as deep as his previous theming in any of his other films. And because of that, and what expectations that I have going into a Jordan Peele film, where I do want to have my brain tickled more than this one had to offer. And I include like even his Key and Peele sketches with that. His comedy sketches and the film Keanu do have, like, the comedy has you thinking in the place that he's coming from, or even the Twilight Zone to a vastly lesser extent, his version of it anyway. You go in with the expectation of having your mind tickled and not necessarily watching a more streamlined film. And this is a much more streamlined film. So that's why it had less of appeal for me, but I can see how, for people who don't want to go into a movie with deep thoughts, might find this great, and the spectacle works for them. But I think that's where the separation that you're getting in the divide with the response to this film is coming from. And you can liken this and Jordan Peele's works in general to one other filmmaker, and I think that other filmmaker is M. Night Shyamalan, for want of a better example. Like, their trajectories, their career paths are pretty on point. Shyamalan started with sort of more comedic fare before hitting it big on his major writer-director debut with The Sixth Sense, which garnered him Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Screenplay, Best like actor nominations for that film, much like Get Out. Uh, Get Out ended up taking the Oscar home. The follow-up film was, depending on who you talk to, with either Unbreakable or Us, either the better film of the first two works or the worst film, a worse film based on those two works. It's a little more rocky in tone. I happen to like Unbreakable better than The Sixth Sense by leaps and bounds. I happen to like Get Out much better than Us by leaps and bounds. However, I think both are fantastic films. And then the third film in the franchise is shifting to a different genre, still within the same kind of horror lean, and that would be one with a science fiction space alien invasion kind of film. So I'm really excited to see what Jordan Peele does with The Village next. Hopefully he doesn't Shyamalan that. But their career trajectory is pretty even so far, and I think we're going to get to a point probably in the near soon where people are going to start turning their back on Peele's output of work until there's a resurgence of appreciation of that work, and then it's going to just kind of ping pong back and forth. That said, I think that Jordan Peele is one of the strongest presences in Hollywood that we have, and I stand by his work. I will also argue that even though M. Night Shyamalan doesn't always deliver a good movie, he always swings for the fences, and like, if he whiffs, sure, he whiffs, but he always tries to swing a grand slam every single time he's at bat. So I give him efforts for trying. I think Jordan Peele so far has the track record with the 3 directorial efforts, but also his other screenplay work, to show us that he is a strong filmmaker and will move forward into good territory moving onward. But don't be surprised if he Shyamalans us, guys. I'm just throwing that out there. Thanks for watching my overlong Nope review. Let me know what you thought of the comments down below. Let me know what you thought of the themes in the comments down below. The themes are going to be like pure spoilers, and I accept that. So feel free to let me know what you thought this film meant outside of what I said. So yeah, thanks for watching. Peace.